The soft humming of the space station floated through the quiet air like a low, endless song. On the edge of known space, orbiting a lonely blue star, Viganine Research Outpost hung silently among the stars. To most people, it was just a quiet place filled with machines, blinking lights, and cold metal walls. But to Ethan Ward, a 32-year-old human technician, this station was his entire world. Ethan had been living on Viganine for almost 2 years. Every day, his job was to check the systems, repair broken modules, and keep the base running. He was not a soldier or a diplomat. He didn't carry weapons. He didn't sit in fancy meetings. He just worked with wires, tools, and machines. Most people on the station barely noticed him. He liked it that way. Life was quiet, predictable, and calm. The station itself was shared between humans and an alien species called the Illyrians. Illyrians were tall, elegant beings with soft silver skin, dark flowing hair, and bright glowing eyes. They moved gracefully, like dancers. Their voices were soft, almost musical. Their culture was built on discipline, logic, and silence. Most humans admired them from afar, but very few ever got close. Ethan was one of those who watched from a distance. He saw them walking through the corridors in their smooth, dark uniforms. They always looked so calm, so sure of themselves. Humans and Illyrians worked together on this base, but not side by side. The Illyrians stayed in their wing, humans in theirs. Only on special missions or emergencies did their paths cross. One of the Illyrians often caught Ethan's eye. Her name was Lyra. She was a security officer. She usually stood silently near the docking bays, tall and steady, her gaze sharp as she watched the ships come and go. Her hair was long and dark like ink, falling smoothly down her back. Her skin reflected the lights of the hallway like silver water. Her uniform fit perfectly, giving her a strong, commanding presence. Ethan had never spoken to her. He always saw her from a distance when he walked past the main bay with his toolbox, or when he fixed the communication panels near the docking doors. She never looked at him directly, or maybe she did, but he never noticed. She seemed too important, too different, like a star that was meant to be admired from far away. But everything changed on one quiet night. It was station night shift. Most crew members were asleep in their quarters. Only the hum of the reactors and the soft blinking of lights filled the air. Ethan sat alone in the control bay, his hands moving over the console as he checked the shield grid. Outside the wide window, stars glimmered like frozen diamonds. The cold beauty of space was something he loved. It was peaceful. He leaned back in his chair and sighed. The silence was comforting. It was just him and the machines. He was halfway through a system scan when the door behind him slid open with a soft hiss. He turned his head lazily, expecting another human technician, but his body froze. Lyra stood at the doorway. The soft white light of the room fell on her silver-toned skin, making her look almost unreal. Her tall figure filled the doorway. Her uniform was sharp and dark, with glowing Illyrian symbols across her chest plate. Her long hair shimmered like liquid night. Her bright eyes locked on him. For a moment, Ethan forgot how to breathe. Lyra stepped into the room without saying a word. Her steps were soundless, like she was walking on air. She didn't carry any weapons. That alone surprised him. Illyrian officers always had their crystal blades at their side. Tonight, she had none. She walked closer to the main console where Ethan sat. He straightened himself in the chair, trying to look less like a tired technician and more like someone useful. His heart thumped a little too fast. "Technician Ethan Ward," she said in a soft, calm voice. Illyrians always spoke gently, like their words were songs. Hearing his name from her lips felt strange and beautiful at the same time. "You were the one who fixed the shield malfunction last week." Her accent was light, melodic. Ethan nodded quickly. "Yes, that was me." She tilted her head slightly, studying him. Illyrians always had this way of looking, like they could see through your skin, through your thoughts, into your soul. "You stayed alone to finish the repair," she said. "Why?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Because someone had to, and everyone else was already asleep." Her expression didn't change, but there was something different in her eyes. A softness. A spark of curiosity. She stepped closer to the console. The distance between them grew smaller. He could see the faint glow of the Illyrian patterns on her collarbone. He could smell something light and sweet in the air, Illyrian night flowers. Maybe Lyra leaned slightly over the glowing panel to look at the readings. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. She was close. Too close. He could hear the quiet rhythm of her breathing. His palms felt warm. His pulse drummed in his ears. She looked at the screens, then at him. "You are different from most humans I have seen." Ethan blinked, caught off guard. I'm just doing my job." "Most humans follow rules," she said softly. "They leave when they are told to leave." "You stayed?" He let out a small, awkward laugh. "Well, I guess I don't like leaving things broken." Lyra's lips curved into something faint, something almost like a smile. It was small, but it lit up her face. Illyrians rarely smiled. It made her look less like a distant officer and more like someone real. Someone alive. The station lights flickered once. A soft rumble passed through the floor as a small asteroid wave brushed against the outer shield. Ethan, who had been through dozens of such tremors, grabbed the edge of the console out of habit. But Lyra stumbled slightly. Without thinking, he reached out and caught her arm. Her skin was warm against his hand. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. She looked at his hand, then at his face. His heart pounded so loudly he thought she might hear it. He let go quickly, but the warmth stayed. For a few long seconds, they just looked at each other. Something unspoken filled the air. It was not part of the mission. It was not in the station rules. It was something human. Something quiet and real. Lyra was the one who finally broke the silence. "You should not have done that," she said softly. But her voice didn't sound like a scolding. It sounded like a whisper. "Yeah," Ethan said, his voice unsteady. "Probably not." But she didn't step back. Instead, she stepped closer. It was a small movement. A slow one. But it made everything inside him freeze. Her presence filled the small space. She wasn't just close physically. It felt like the distance between their worlds, human and Illyrian, had grown smaller too. She looked at the console again, then at him. "Do you like the stars?" She asked. The question surprised him. "The stars?" "Yeah, I've always liked them. They're quiet, honest." She nodded slowly. "Illyrians are taught not to feel too much," she said in a low voice. "We are taught to serve our duty, to follow the balance. But when I look at the stars, I feel something." Ethan's chest tightened. "What do you feel?" She paused. "I feel small, but not weak." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, I get that." For the first time, her eyes softened completely. Her usual, calm, distant expression was gone. There was something else now. Curiosity. Warmth. A quiet connection. The door suddenly slid open. A human security officer stepped inside with a datapad in hand. "Hey, Ethan." "Oh." He froze when he saw Lyra standing so close to him. She immediately straightened up, her face returning to its calm, formal mask. "Officer Lyra," the human said awkwardly. "I didn't know you were, here." She gave a small nod and walked toward the door without looking back at Ethan. Her steps were once again silent and controlled, as if nothing had happened. But just before she crossed the threshold, she glanced over her shoulder. For the briefest second, her eyes met his again. That one look said more than words could. Then she was gone. Ethan sat frozen at the console, staring at the empty doorway. His heartbeat was still racing. He touched the spot on his arm where her skin had brushed his. The warmth was still there, like a spark that refused to fade. The human officer looked at him, confused. What was that? Ethan didn't answer. He just leaned back in his chair, his eyes on the stars outside the window. The endless sky suddenly didn't feel so empty anymore. That night, he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her standing in the doorway, silver skin shining under the lights. He heard her voice saying, "You are different from most humans I have seen." and he felt the way his heart had jumped when she stepped closer. He didn't understand why it happened. He didn't even know what it meant. Illyrians were not known to act like that with humans. They kept distance. Always. And yet, something had happened. Something small, but powerful. Over the next few days, Ethan kept working as usual. He checked the shield generators, repaired faulty cables, ran power tests, but every time he passed the docking bay, his eyes searched for her without meaning to. And more than once, he caught her watching him too. She didn't say anything. Neither did he. But there was a silent understanding growing between them. A thread. Then, on the fourth night, he noticed something different. The Illyrian guards near the bay seemed tense. They were scanning the starfield more carefully than usual. Rumors spread among the human crew. A rogue fleet had been spotted far beyond the outer sensors. No one knew if it was real or just station gossip. But Lyra walked the halls with a silent purpose in her steps. She looked like someone carrying a secret she could not share. Later that night, while Ethan was back in the control bay, she appeared again. This time. The quiet nights on Veganine were never meant to last. 3 days after Lyra warned Ethan, the alarm bells rang through every hallway of the station. They weren't soft chimes or training drills. These were deep, sharp, and cold. Red lights flashed across the walls, turning the calm silver corridors into rivers of crimson. Ethan had just finished tightening the shield. Grid bolts near the reactor core when the voice of the commander filled the speakers. All personnel report to assigned emergency posts. Unidentified ships entering outer perimeter. This is not a drill. Ethan dropped his wrench. His stomach tightened. The distant sound of metal groaning echoed through the station as the emergency doors locked into place. He ran toward the control bay, his boots hitting the floor hard, his breath short. In all his time on Veganine, there had never been an alert like this. When he reached the control bay, the room was already alive with movement. Human technicians rushed between consoles. Illyrian officers moved with silent precision. The large screen in the center of the room showed it clearly, a fleet of black, spiked ships cutting through the stars like blades. Rogue harvesters. Ethan had heard stories about them. Pirates, raiders, machines mixed with flesh. They attacked outer colonies for supplies, technology, and sometimes people. They were fast, ruthless, and hard to stop. The human commander barked orders. Shields at maximum. Prepare evacuation shuttles. Illyrian squad, lock defense gates. Through the noise, Ethan saw her. Lyra stood near the center of the room, calm but fierce, dressed in full Illyrian security armor. Her long dark hair was tied back, her silver skin reflecting the red light. Her hands rested on her crystal blade, glowing faintly at her side. Her eyes met his for a brief moment. Even in the chaos, that single look grounded him. She stepped toward him as the crew moved around them. "The shield grid," she said in her soft, serious tone. "If it falls, the station will be exposed." Ethan nodded. "I'll keep it running." "I know," she replied. Her voice was calm, but beneath that calmness, there was trust. Real trust. He hurried to the console. His fingers flew over the screen, rerouting power, boosting generators. But something was wrong. The grid was flickering, power shifting between nodes too fast. It was the same section he had repaired a week ago, the one she had asked about that night. "Sector 7 is weak," he muttered to himself. "Can you fix it?" she asked, standing beside him. "If I can reach the reactor sublevel?" "Yes," he answered. "But it's outside the main barrier." She didn't hesitate. "I'll come with you," he blinked. "What?" She took one step closer, her armor whispering against the floor. "You can fix the shield. I can protect you." That's faster than waiting for a squad. For a heartbeat, he saw something in her eyes. Not just duty, but determination. And something else. Something warmer. He nodded. "Let's go." Together, they ran through the flashing corridors. The air smelled faintly like burnt ozone as emergency lights guided their way. Alarms echoed like distant thunder. The station trembled from the pressure of the approaching fleet. The walls shook like a beating heart. Lyra moved like a shadow, fast, precise, silent. Ethan followed, clutching his toolkit tight. He wasn't a soldier. He didn't belong in the middle of danger. But with her next to him, he didn't feel alone. When they reached the sublevel hatch, she tapped the panel and opened the thick metal door. Cold air rushed through. Sparks jumped from broken wires overhead. The hallway was narrow, dimly lit, and filled with the deep hum of the reactors. A soft blue light pulsed from the generator room ahead. Ethan crouched beside the damaged control unit, pulling out cables and tools. His hands moved fast, his mind racing through power equations and wiring patterns. He knew this system better than anyone. If the grid failed, the station wouldn't survive the first wave of the attack. Lyra stood behind him, her blade drawn. She watched the hallway with sharp, focused eyes. The hum of the reactors mixed with distant echoes of metal clashing. Somewhere above them, the first blasts had hit the outer shields. "Ethan," she said quietly. "Yeah." "When this is over," she paused. "I want to tell you something." Her voice carried a strange softness that didn't fit the hard sound of alarms. He didn't turn to look at her. He just smiled faintly while tightening a bolt. "Then we better make sure we survive this." A sudden loud crash interrupted them. One of the side panels burst open. A maintenance drone fell to the floor, sparks flying. Ethan flinched back. Lyra moved instantly, stepping between him and the hallway with her blade up. The sound of metal feet approached. Not human, not Illyrian. Harvester boarding bots. She raised her blade. "Stay behind me." 3 spider-like bots crawled into the hallway, their red eyes glowing like fire. Lyra moved with the grace of someone born for battle. She struck the first bot in one clean motion. The blade cut through metal, sparks exploding like fireworks. The second bot lunged, but she spun gracefully, knocking it back against the wall. The third bot fired a pulse bolt. It hit the floor near Ethan, burning the metal. He gasped, but stayed low. Her movements were precise, silent, like a dance. But this was no performance. It was real. It was deadly. And in the middle of that danger, Ethan saw the same woman who had once stood silently in the doorway. She was strong, unbreakable. When the last bot fell, she turned to him. "Fix it." He was already working. The wires were hot, the panel cracked. Sweat dripped down his forehead. The entire grid needed rerouting. He could hear the shield alarms screaming above them. The outer barrier was taking heavy hits. "Almost there," he whispered. Lyra knelt beside him to shield his back, watching the hallway. The soft blue reactor light made her silver skin shine. For a strange, quiet moment, he felt safe despite the storm outside. Finally, the console lit up green. "Got it?" he shouted. The hum of the shield grid grew louder, steadier. On the upper levels, a cheer rose among the defense crew. The shield was back online. They had bought time, but time was short. Lyra helped him to his feet. "We must return to the control bay." They ran through the corridors again. The floor vibrated with every distant blast. The station shook like it was breathing through pain. The harvester fleet had started firing heavy pulses, but the shield held for now. When they reached the control bay, the room was even more chaotic. Smoke drifted from a damaged panel near the wall. Officers shouted orders in 2 languages, human and Illyrian. But the biggest change wasn't inside. It was outside the window. The harvester fleet had surrounded Veganine like a ring of black shadows. Their spiked ships sent glowing streams of energy toward the shield, hammering it again and again. But the barrier glowed bright blue now, thanks to the repair Ethan had made. The station was still standing. The commander barked, "Evacuation shuttles are ready. We need 10 more minutes to launch." Lyra stepped forward. "He fixed the shield," she said firmly, pointing at Ethan. The commander looked at him with wide eyes. "Then we owe him those 10 minutes." Ethan returned to the console, rerouting power again to keep the grid stable. His hands moved quickly, almost without thinking. But then he noticed something on the screen. The harvesters were focusing all their energy on one single point of the shield. "A weak spot. They're going to break through at Sector 3. He shouted. The commander paled. That's where the evacuation corridor is. Lyra turned sharply. Her voice was calm, steady. Then we hold them, the commander hesitated. With what forces? Half our guards are already deployed. She didn't wait for permission. She looked at Ethan. I need you with me. His breath caught. Me. You can reroute power manually from the corridor itself, she said. I can fight. Together, we can stop them from breaking through. He stared at her for a second. The logical part of his brain screamed that he was just a technician, not a fighter. But when he looked at her steady, strong, trusting him, he nodded. Let's go. They rushed to the evacuation corridor. The air smelled like burning metal now. Alarms echoed from every direction. Smoke drifted in the hallway like fog. At the far end, through the thick blast doors, you could hear the rumbling of harvester claws trying to cut through. Ethan opened the side panel and dropped to his knees. His hands dove into the mess of wires. If I can overload the barrier here, it'll double the strength for a few minutes. Lyra drew her blade, standing tall between him and the doors. The sound of cutting metal grew louder. The harvesters were almost through. Ethan, she said softly, not taking her eyes off the door. Yeah. His voice was shaky as he worked. When this is over, she whispered, I want to see the stars with you. Not from here. From somewhere free. The words hit him like a warm wave in the cold. He didn't know why, but hearing that made the fear smaller. He smiled without looking up. I'd like that. The doors cracked. The first harvester bot burst through, red eyes glowing, sharp legs scraping the metal floor. Then another. And another. A swarm. Lyra stepped forward. Her blade sang through the air like light. She moved like wind and steel. Every strike was clean, silent, precise. The first wave of bots fell, sparks flying. She spun gracefully, deflecting a pulse bolt with her blade. Ethan had never seen anything like it. The woman who once stood silently in the hallway was now fighting like she carried the weight of both their worlds on her shoulders. He forced his shaking hands to focus. Wires sparked. Circuits hummed. The console beeped, overload ready.